Welcome back to another episode of The New World. And in today's video, we discuss the huge drop-off of a one Paul George, who is most likely a future Hall of Famer. But to say a brother is washed is an understatement. If you are avid on social media, especially Twitter, you will notice comparisons of a one Brooklyn Nets KG meme and even an Atlanta Hawks or Spurs Tracy McGrady meme. And to put that in perspective, that means he is a former shell of himself. But before we discuss, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't, as we're on the road to 10K subs. Turn on those notifications and stay tuned for more videos on the way. And comment your thoughts on the 76ers PG and his play this season. Now fellas, after watching Paul George throughout this season so far, what are your thoughts on his drop and what do you think his true worth is as opposed to the contract he has got this offseason?
Once again, I'm going to start with that last question first. One thing I need to say about Paul George, I need to figure out who that man's agent is, because him and that nigga, they are definitely fleecing. I told the gang before this video started that Paul George and Ben Simmons, they're like the greatest bank robbers of all time. They just stealing so much damn money, man. This shit is ridiculous. Paul George been playing like ass this year. Let you go and get that off rip. If we compare this season to last season, last year he was pretty good. He averaged 22.5 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and he played 74 games. And this year he's averaging 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4.7 assists on 42, 33, and 74 splits. This man has been hot ass this year, and the shit is really like, I can't put it into any better words than that. Like, I can't really have an intellectual conversation about Paul George, because from 33 to 34, just a big drop off. Like when we saw that drop off from Chris Paul after his birthday that year that they played the Dallas Mavericks in the postseason, and it was his birthday, and we just saw the drop off like that. Like as soon as his birthday hit, like just ass, just terrible. And that's what we're seeing with Paul George. And I think that we can mark a lot of this with the damn podcast piece shit. And it's like, dog, I told Jay and Buffy just before the video started, if you ain't won a damn championship in the NFL and the NBA, there should be a rule that states you cannot have a podcast unless your ass has won a damn championship. That should be a rule, because these niggas are distracted. Paul George, when he's hurt and he's out, because he's missing a lot of damn time lately. Like, he's only played 21 games on the season. So he only played 21 out of 33 games on the season. And when you're not playing, when you're quote unquote injured, you're making podcasts. Like, he has more podcasts than games played, ladies and gentlemen. This shit is anemic. I don't really have much to say about Paul George. Like, we could also be making another video about the quote-unquote franchise player who's not playing as well. And my boy Jay even asked us how we felt about Joel Embiid's recent 37-point explosion. And I was like, sir, isn't that what he's supposed to do? I'm actually just surprised the nigga was playing, because I saw that on Christmas Day, he had tripped over that wire or whatever that shit was. I was like, damn, this nigga just can't catch a fucking break, man. Philadelphia 76ers might be a cursed franchise. They haven't really been that interesting since AI left them, if we're just being honest. Like, Joel Embiid had just given nothing but sorrow to this team and to this franchise. And Paul George is falling in lockstep. They really gave a 34-year-old man 4 years, $212 million. And last year he did have a solid season, but to give him that type of bag was just kind of crazy to me. But I don't see Paul George improving anymore. I think at this point, Paul George, he is a part-time NBA player and he's a full-time podcaster. So NBA is just a side hustle. And I think that that's just incredible that, niggas is getting $200+ million contracts in a side hustle. So I really just want to know who Paul George's agent is and if I can get into contact with him on my next deal with my job and future jobs, because these niggas is robbing the 76ers organization. Because Daryl Morey, I can't believe that you fell for that. Daryl Morey is smarter than that. He's an MIT guy. So just a lot of bad business decisions. And Paul George, sir, can we get off the podcast a little bit and focus on our craft? Because for you to be shooting 42% from the field, which that's kind of customary, but 33% from 3 and 77% from the free throw line, that's not like you at all, sir. He's not shooting the ball well at all, ladies and gentlemen. I had to go to his game logs to see when the last time he's shot over 50% from the field, and it's been about half of a month since he shot over 50% from the field. So he just has not been well. Tyrese Maxey is basically on the island by himself, and I feel bad for the brother because he's also not efficient either. So they're just a bunch of inefficient players on that basketball team, and the 76ers are really a joke. It's really all I gotta say about them. That's why I made this video rather comedic, because their play has been comedic. I can't take them niggas seriously.
Paul George, he's honestly a troll player to me. Like, this dude has all the talent in the world and he just has not lived up to it. I've been on record saying this about Paul George, that the brother has kind of underachieved during the course of his entire tenure as an NBA player. He has not really been as he was touted to, and I know he had the injury. Pacers kind of hampered his athleticism, but I was really wondering why Sixers fans were so happy with this deal, because Paul George, he's been known for his inconsistency. Like, you just look at his tenure on the Los Angeles Clippers. He was inconsistent as hell. Like, just look at 2020. This dude was hitting shots off the backboard, like in postseason games, in game sevens. So he wasn't a serious player then, and that's when he dubbed himself, playoff P. He gave him all these nicknames, which honestly, if you're any player in sports, you don't give yourself a nickname. You don't give yourself a nickname because that allows people to troll you. The only person who gave himself a nickname, I think, was Kobe. But you don't give yourself a nickname, bro. You don't have aura like that. And why would you name yourself Playoff P like you play good in the postseason when you have been known to shrink down? Remember the series in 2017 against the Cavs? Paul George was begging to get the ball back from CJ Miles. He had the whole Gatorade commercial when he, ball game. And then just in game 4, game 3, to miss the go-ahead shot, and for them to troll him in the locker room. CJ Miles got on his ass. They trolled him in the locker room. They didn't have any respect for this guy. So Paul George has really been disappointed as a player, bro, for the longest, man. And it's a shame because as a skill level player, just comparing him to guys he's like a Tracy McGrady, Carmelo Anthony type talent, but he hasn't lived up to being a greater talent than that. He hasn't been a greater talent than that. He had the one season in OKC, which he flashed what that could be in the MVP caliber season when he was averaging like 28, 7, and 3, also being one of the best defensive players in the league. But his defense has been bad. His defense hasn't been good. The dude can't really guard like that anymore. Like, he's watched, and I think these organizations, they look at it and they look at the standpoint of, KD, LeBron, and Steph. They're still playing at a high level, even though, these guys are 36 and up. They have kind of broken from the plane that regular NBA players and regular greats, come from. You start declining after 32. And Paul George is in that range. Jimmy Butler, too, all these other guys, they're in that range, but they're about 33, 34. They're not getting any younger. They're averaging 20 points. Maybe they're averaging 15 to 20 points, and they are just not the caliber player that they used to be. And for the 76ers to approach him like this dude makes more podcast episodes than games played. Literally, that's what Paul George is now. He is podcaster first, NBA player second. I just don't want to hear more of Paul George, man. Like, this dude, he grinds my gears so much, bro.
What do you mean by that?
Because this dude has so much talent, and he just doesn't have the mental fortitude to be that guy. In the bubble, he showed us who he really was, and I understand, not seeing your family and all that stuff. But you look at the great players like the Jordans, the LeBrons, the Kobes, they kind of have an edge that makes them the best, that is also kind of borderline psychotic and crazy. And Paul George has that. He's just a regular guy, kind of talented, but he doesn't have that level that those guys have. And I think that's fine, but for Paul George to be talking on these podcast shows like he does, like as Mal alluded to, Draymond Green, he can talk because he won championship. Paul George, you haven't won anything. You haven't won anything. You haven't even seen the NBA Finals in person. Actually, the only NBA Finals he's seen in person was when Joel Embiid recruited him to the 76ers. That's the only Finals he's seen in person. I have no other words to say about Paul George. This dude is disappointed, bro. Just a disappointed player.
One thing I gotta say before we kick off the J is that Buffy mentioned that Paul George ball game, that commercial, that bullshit. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think Paul George has ever had a game-winning shot in his life. He has no clutch gene at all. Like, he's just not a clutch player. That's not anything that the Most High blessed him with. Because anytime this man is shooting a shot with the money on the line, he's always missing that shit. So I just thought this shit was very ironic. He's never been clutch ever.
Man, Paul George, that brother is washed. I also want to throw a shot to the 76 organization. These folks cannot bring in, veteran star who's at least good in the playoffs. We bring somebody who's good in the playoffs when you sign him in free agency. We brought in James Harden, and we know he's a playoff dropper. And now we bring in Paul George. I mean, sometimes he's inconsistent in the regular season. So it's like, bring in somebody that at least is going to give me some consistency. Like, they haven't had that in a good, consistent playoff player since, Jimmy Butler. Because, Joel Embiid isn't a playoff player. Ben Simmons ain't a good playoff player. Like, this organization just can't bring in somebody who plays good in the playoffs. Paul George, dude, he's a D1 robber. Like Mal said, him and Ben Simmons, they probably shaking hands behind the scenes because the way they rob these organizations of money is crazy. $220 million, that's really like a first option type of, or at least 1B type of contract. The Clippers, they gave him what he was, at least at that time, what he was worth, which is 150, because now in this league, that's pretty common for like a rising star or something like that. Like Jalen Suggs has that type of contract, and that's cool. But like 220 M's, Paul George, he's past his years. But even though he did have some pretty solid, numbers last year, he still doesn't show up in the playoffs. I'm looking at these, like sometimes when I watch these 76ers games and I look at the box score, I'm like, my gosh, I'm like, roll that clip. Somebody smell like shit. Somebody smell like shit. You know what? Like, come on now. Tyrese Maxey, he's really out there with some incompetence because he already has a number one option who basically just said, hey, I'm not going to be there for you, all the time. I'm going to be there sometimes I'm not. So you going to have to play when I'm not there. And Paul George said the same thing. He's not going to be there in back-to-back games. He basically left out there on the battlefield alone. This 76ers team, even though they're starting to win games now, it's not really going to allude to anything because they got 2 playoff droppers on that team and they got 2 hobble guys on that team. The 76ers are in a bad situation because I'm pretty sure no NBA team is finna sit there and want Paul George. And this is one of my favorite players of all time. It's crazy to me how so many people had this guy as their GOAT. Dude was literally called the 6'8", 6'9" AI Kyrie. And it's kind of like when you think of...
What the fuck? Who the fuck said that?
You ain't never heard that? Like, he's been called like the 6'8", 6'9" Kyrie because, he can handle the hell.
They've been calling him like 6'9" Kyrie. Like, that's what they call him. Like, when they look at his old highlights and they look at how he's awesome, like his handle, he's really smooth. They call him Kyrie. It's basically like a swingman forward version of Kyrie.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's the most bullshit shit I've ever heard, man. Y'all, Gen Z niggas. I'm a part of that generation, but y'all like that, like the Brandon Millers. Like, see, that's how I know Brandon Miller never gonna be no great player, because that's who you're looking up to, Paul fucking George.
And the highlights are kind of crazy. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, his highlights are tough, but
some of the handles, man, it's generational, man.
Yeah, them hoes is sexy.
That's not no fucking gold, man. That's a damn llama or some shit. Not no fucking gold.
I do agree with you guys as well with the whole podcast thing. Like, it's kind of it's not kind of, it is a distraction because, I mean, this dude's making out more podcast episodes than he is playing actual NBA games. And you getting paid 220 M's. And then when you out here trying to give advice for like playoffs and stuff like that, who should be listening? I mean, you made it there. That's cool. But have you succeeded? It's like taking advice from James Harden in the playoffs, Joel Embiid or somebody like that. Even though you made it, you haven't succeeded. Why am I taking advice from you? Paul George, I mean, he is a former shell himself. This whole 76ers organization is like the Jets situation if you look at it in the NFL. I really don't see nothing happening that's really important with the 76ers this season, because the only thing for them is a championship, especially if you bring in somebody like Paul George with a contract of $220 million. I don't even see them, touching the Eastern Conference Final. We already know Joel Embiid doesn't make those anyways, but when you got Paul George on your team, you definitely ain't making it. So he's got 4 years on that contract. He should probably go ahead and pack it up after that contract over with.
And don't even pack it up after that contract over with. The way this nigga performing, just pack that shit up now. I'm tired of looking at it. Paul George is an eyesore. He got all of these. I guess his animations are nice. I think that's what niggas like, his animations, but this is not fucking 2K. Now you can just get Paul George animation down the line, you can be a 99 overall. Like, no, he's ass. As my boy CJ says, he has all these attributes, but he has no fucking badges. Like, his badges are on bronze, so he doesn't have any at all. Paul George era is done. Sixers, I hope this is the last time we make a 76ers video, but as I said, let us know in the comment section if y'all want to talk about Joel Embiid, because just a video solely dedicated and focused on him and just what he's done. Like, now we're hyping up 37-point performances. The bar just been set very, very low. If you made it to the end of this video, we appreciate y'all watching. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe once again. That's all I got.